Bloomberg Tech Europe is live from our London headquarters with Tom Mackenzie.
You are watching Bloomberg Tech Europe. Coming up, from underdog to Europe's tech darling, Klein turned SAP into Europe's most valuable company. We sit down with the CEO to find out how he pulled it off and what's next for the German tech titan. The data center showdown. SAP CEO fires back at US tech giants pushing to dominate Europe's digital infrastructure. Plus, has Europe already lost the AI race? Klein says not quite, but red tape is tripping up Europe's AI game.
In the US, you have one standard. You can scale like hell. And here, you have, when you have your startup in Germany, you can do your business in Germany, which is by far smaller than the United States. And then when you're going into the next country, now you have to stop again.
Our interview with SAP boss Klein, filmed at the company's headquarters in Walldorf, Germany, is coming up. Welcome to Bloomberg Tech Europe. Before we get to our exclusive interview, let's take a look at how one firm went from a quiet software provider to the IT engine behind global business and became Europe's most valuable company. Once overshadowed by luxury icon LVMH and pharmaceutical titan Novo Nordisk, SAP has risen steadily to the top and is now worth over 300 billion euros. Its business enterprise software powers the inner workings of more than 90% of Fortune 500 companies, including Coca-Cola, Apple, Walmart and Nestlé. The SAP story started in 1972, when a group of former IBM engineers set out to build something revolutionary, software that could integrate all of a company's operations and process data in real time. By the mid-70s, SAP was signing major clients, but even its founders might be surprised at just how embedded it's become in the global corporate landscape.
SAP's business model is incredibly sticky, so companies have been putting their data into SAP systems for years and even decades, and then they integrate these systems with other applications across the company, and it just gets incredibly hard to leave.
Despite that stickiness, SAP's dominance has drawn fierce competition from the likes of Oracle, Microsoft and Salesforce. But markets are betting big on SAP's future. At more than 40 times projected earnings, SAP's stock is more expensive than Microsoft, Meta or Apple, a clear sign of investor confidence. But SAP must prove it can quickly integrate artificial intelligence, adapt to tighter EU regulations, and fend off hungry competitors. The quiet engine of corporate IT is now very much in the spotlight. Well, I travelled to SAP's headquarters in Walldorf, Germany, to sit down with the CEO, Klein, and I started by asking him about that crucial moment in 2020, not long after he took over as sole CEO, when the company pulled its 5-year guidance, which saw shares promptly drop by 30%.
I mean, obviously, I knew that when we made this decision and communicated to the financial markets, I knew that the reaction will not be great. I didn't expect a 30% drop, but still, I mean, we expected it somehow. I mean, at that day, I didn't need a glass of water. I needed a glass of wine or 2 or 3. But of course, it was calculated in a way that, given my career at SAP and before I became the CEO, I was the chief operating officer, actually running our IT systems here for SAP. And at that point, we already acquired some cloud companies. And I worked for one of those, SuccessFactors. And for me, what I learned from actually from the ground up was, hey, this company with the SaaS business model, with a completely different business model, cannot actually survive inside SAP with the business processes, the way how we work, and the way how our systems, our ERP works, because it doesn't fit to this new world. So I said, when I became the CEO, I said, hey, the time is over that we are sitting here with a customized ERP where no one really knows how to upgrade it every 8 years. I mean, the customers need faster innovation, so they cannot always spend hundreds of millions for the next ERP upgrade. So the cloud. And honestly, we have a lot of competitors in the meantime in the cloud. So the cloud is clearly beneficial. So I said, hey, we can have here a happy life for the next 6 years, but then SAP has for sure no future anymore. So now we need to shift, and not only from upfront license on-prem to subscription. I mean, this is a fundamental transformation. It changes how you code software, how you deliver software, how you sell and adopt it. So everything is changing, and with that, of course, also our own solutions. And so I applied a lot what I learned inside SAP later than in my current job, and I said, hey, look, this decision is not an optional one, it's not a nice to have, it's actually fundamental for the future of SAP.
And this was, to be clear, this was the crucial decision to move away from on-premise licenses for your customers to cloud subscriptions. And you're very clear, if you hadn't made that decision, if you hadn't made that transition, SAP would not be here today.
Game over.
And you've set yourselves a deadline of 2027 in terms of shifting those legacy licenses to those subscription cloud products. There are some analysts out there who've said, what happens to growth after that period of time? What do you say to those analysts concerned that growth is starting to run out? You see this incredible growth as a result of this shift. 2027 comes along and suddenly growth starts to plateau or cools off. What continues growth beyond that period?
I mean, first it's important to emphasize that this 2027 deadline, it exists and we cannot delay it. But it's not like SAP, sets this deadline just to move our customers now to the cloud. In every technology stack of every tech company, you have third-party components in there, and some of these components, from these vendors, also shifted to the cloud. So we don't have any alternative anymore to say to our customers, because you need to maintain and support such a technical stack. So now we have this deadline, and obviously, when you are now looking at the transformation of our customers. Take, like the largest ones. We have an Exxon. Yesterday I had BP and many more in Amazon, Microsoft. They are all customers. And what they are, when you look at their transformation, they are using SAP really broadly on premise. Now, oftentimes they start with finance, then with HR, then we are going into supply chain, then we are going into the front office with commerce. Samsung is now rolling out SAP Commerce all over the world. But when you look at that, in the cloud probably they are 20% done, and they will not be done until 2027, because we are touching a highly mission-critical business. So oftentimes they start with one function inside the company, and then we actually move them with a real business transformation to our new platform, and that will ensure that SAP will growing in a very positive way. For sure, until 2030 plus, and then you always have new things.
How do you differentiate yourself from your competitors like Microsoft, like Oracle, like Salesforce?
When you come to a customer, and the way how I explain it, and it's a very important question, which we of course also ask ourselves when we think about our portfolio and where we put our R&D money into. There is no other company who has a better understanding of business processes, and there is no other company who has more business data than SAP has. Not only sales data, not only HR data, not only finance, we have supply chain, we have everything. 400,000 customers. Now, when it comes to a transformation of a company, how we differentiate, when now I had actually Kone or Schindler, they are building elevators, heavily, business model heavily under pressure. They need to bundle not only selling elevators, they need to have predictive maintenance built into the elevator services. And so the only tech company who can make sure that they can configure the new way of how they want to package their portfolio, and then is making sure that their factories all over the world get real-time information what to produce, what to build into the elevator, and then making sure that you realize all the orders real-time in your financial system, all of that end-to-end. There's only SAP to that. And that is something, what you can't do with any best of breed. And that is now delivered in the cloud, out of the box, and not anymore in a monolithic ERP system. But that is obviously not enough. Yeah. The second part on AI, we said very early on, we believe large language models will be commoditized. We are agnostic. We are using the best. And we are seeing for certain use cases, we use this LLM module. For other use cases in manufacturing, we are using a different LLM model because we see better results. Now, what we are doing, what no LLM model can do, is we have a lot of business data. And when you would ask today an LLM module, hey, what is now here my financial forecast for the year for SAP? No clue, because no access to the business data. And what we are now doing is we have Joule, our digital assistant. We use a very good large language module, especially, for, that end users can actually talk to the system and can ask all kinds of questions. And then we're connecting the LLM for the unstructured data with our AI foundation for business data, and that combination has no other tech company, and that's also how we differentiate in business AI.
Is that also a solution to those who say there's a risk for SAP that you become the back end, you become the data infrastructure, and then you have the more consumer-facing applications built on top of that?
Yeah.
Is that a concern?
Look, I hear this, of course, as well, but no workflow, no custom AI use case can be actually replace a real business application. Will it change with AI how we develop business application? For sure. Code generation, test automation will be all, automated in the future with new AI coding tools. But still, you need a business application to understand the business context, to understand the business rules, and that sits with SAP.
Okay, Christian Klein, the CEO of SAP. Coming up, has the US already won the AI race? Christian Klein believes Europe still has a chance. For more from our exclusive interview, stay tuned. That's coming up. This is Bloomberg. Welcome back to Bloomberg Tech Europe. Now, SAP's recent growth has been powered by a pivot to the cloud, with the company leaning heavily into artificial intelligence. Now, a leader in that space, I asked SAP's Christian Klein if Europe is still in the global AI race.
On hardware, on infra, I would now not try to compete with companies who did a pretty good job, predominantly in the United States or China. The AI race is not decided yet on the software layer. There will be, there's so much demand now. The chips are there. Yeah. There is also not a lack of data centers. Sovereignty is, for me, an artificial discussion here. What the race is not decided is who now develops the best AI use cases for our life science industry here in Europe? Who develops the best AI use cases for logistics, for manufacturing? This is now starting, because now what happened is the innovation on the infra layer, on the LLM layer. But now, finally, you can actually now develop also new innovation on the software, on the AI layer. And this is where it also matters most for Europe.
To be clear, because Jensen Huang, CEO of NVIDIA, of course, was in Europe a few weeks ago, doing a tour of Europe and making the case that Europe needs infrastructure, needs to build data centers and needs to fill them with chips. And if we don't have that component, we're not going to be in this race. You say that's not where the priority, that's not where the focus should be for Europe.
Look, the point is you need to come from both sides. You need chips and data centers when someone is consuming it. But, there is not, the same demand for these chips in Europe like in the United States, where you have a lot of companies who need chips for training their large language modules, etc. Here, of course, when you now apply AI, develop software, develop, new AI use cases, of course, there will be at a certain point also a higher demand for chips and for data centers. But, now just focusing on the infra layer, on building data centers, I would predict there is for sure not so much demand right now. So you need to come also from the demand layer, from the top, from the software, from the AI layer, where again the ways is not decided yet. And then of course, what that drives is then finally more demand for chips, but in that order, not necessarily just building data centers for the sake of building data centers.
Is the EU AI Act, is it a hindrance to our development of this technology, or a catalyst? How do you see the regulatory environment when it comes to AI?
I mean, when I'm sometimes talking in Brussels or in other councils in Europe, the first topic is always regulation, and I wonder sometimes, can we maybe first talk about competitiveness and opportunities and how we use now AI to make our industries more competitive? And because then, when you are leading there, then you can ask also the question how to regulate. I mean, honestly, I don't see in Europe now so many AI use cases who need now deep regulation so far. Now, regulation, I'm not against it. The problem with regulation and with the AI Act is, I would say Brussels come in with the absolutely right intent. They say, you know what, this technology needs to be regulated. I'm not against that, as long as you're regulating, business outcomes, and you also ensure there is a fair competition. I'm absolutely in for that. The problem here in Europe is they're having all the right strategic intent, but then they are putting this in place, but the member states, they just keep what they have. And then you're just adding another layer, because then you have AI policies all over the place, and then they're overlapping. And the one data protection officer says that, the other says that. It's like going to 5 doctors and they tell you 5 times a different thing. And now you imagine you are a startup and you want to scale your technology, and in every country you are going in Europe, you hear a different story on how to adhere to any kind of AI Act. So Europe needs one framework, and not 20 different with 100 different interpretations of that. And that is what we are having.
That's what we have now. So scaling is not going to happen in that environment.
No, for sure not.
Are we overly dependent on US technology? Is it realistic to think that we can have sovereign European technology?
Look, I mean, here we have a data center, an SAP data center. It's a data center here in Germany. We run it, so when a customer comes to us and says, Christian, I want to have a European cloud only managed by SAP, you have it. That is a form of sovereignty. Now, what every European infrastructure will have, there are certain hardware components which come from the US, a server, etc. Now, is this a big problem? Not at all. I mean, this is hardware. We put it into our data center. Because sometimes you're saying, oh, there could be a US technology in there or China technology. But at a certain point, one component will come from a different part of the world. But that is the wrong definition of sovereignty. The sovereignty means for me, where is your data going to be located? Who has access to your data? It's a network question. It's then, of course, also, do you want to have an encryption of your data? We do it today. So we have all kinds of forms of sovereignty.
Going back to your point about data centers and the hyperscalers in the US, the argument being that if we are building on the application layer, if we're building industrial AI, that we will be dependent on US hyperscalers if we don't build the data centers here. We have enough data centers here right now. You don't think that should be the priority?
No,
you don't think we should be spending on data centers?
It's not a problem. I mean, the customers have choice. They, of course, choose the US hyperscaler, and we work with the US hyperscalers as a partners because they are not only providing an infrastructure layer. I mean, there's an automation layer. It's also about resiliency. I mean, when you shift your most mission-critical data to the cloud, every CIO needs, the best SLA on system reliability and so on. And there, the US hyperscalers are doing a good job. Are we dependent on them? No, we can shift the workloads to our own data center if customers want to do that.
Okay, SAP CEO Christian Klein speaking to us exclusively from the company's headquarters in Walldorf, Germany. Coming up, can SAP maintain its rapid pace of growth? And how will AI shape the company's future? We're going to discuss that next. This is Bloomberg. Welcome back to Bloomberg Tech Europe. This is SAP's stock price since Christian Klein took the role of sole CEO back in April of 2020. You can see the gains there of almost 170%. But does the future look as rosy for SAP as investors seem to believe? I'm joined now by Christina Kiriasoglu, our tech reporter who covers SAP from Germany. Christina, look, you know this company so well. You know Christian Klein so well as well. He said to me, look, he's very confident they're going to get that growth continuing beyond 2027. What are the potential headwinds to that narrative, to that growth for SAP?
Yeah, look, Tom, I mean, SAP is growing fast. They are moving their existing business to the cloud, and that, leads to a lot of growth in the cloud. But when you look at the base, the customer base, just 40% of the customers have started this journey yet. So there's 60% remaining that still needs to make the move, and it takes a lot of time. It's expensive, and the macro environment doesn't really help, the companies making these large spending decisions. So they extended their maintenance through to 2030, so there will be more growth of this existing business. But I think what the really interesting question is how much of the future cloud growth will be due to SAP selling real innovations, like innovative products, the applied AI that Christian Klein wants to put out there. And their CFO, he made an attempt at the last Capital Markets Day to explain, that not just the growth is the existing business, that they are also selling more new products to the customers in the cloud. And that's great, but at the same time, are the early adopters just big SAP fans, or can this just be extrapolated in the future?
How much of a lead do they have when it comes to AI, Christina?
So, in AI, Christian Klein told you this, and I think it's true. The experts agree on this. They have very meaningful data in their system, right? HR, finance, supply chain, order management, you name it. So this is a big advantage that SAP has. But then what they now need to do is to build really great AI products on top. And I think this is something that all enterprises are still very early in doing, and it's very competitive. And the likes of Amazon, Microsoft, they have very deep pockets, and I think they will not just, let this opportunity slide.
Yeah. Okay, really important context from Bloomberg Tech reporter Christina Kiriasoglu. Thank you very much indeed. On the next episode of Bloomberg Tech Europe, we're going to look at how AI then is set to revolutionize the labor force. SAP's Christian Klein told me the impact will be tremendous, but how exactly will it change the way we work? Catch that episode on August the 15th. The opening trade is up next. This is Bloomberg.